Welcome to the Superintendent's Hangout, where we discuss topics in education, charter schools, life in general, and not necessarily in that order. I'm your host, Dr. Sharetta. Come on in and hang out. In this episode, I sat down with Zachary Tong. Zach is originally from the UK and he now lives in La Jolla, California. And this young man has his sights set on setting 4 world records for solo unsupported ocean rowing. His plan is to row across, yes, you heard it correctly, row across, unsupported, no boats to support him, no one to give him food and sustenance along the way, just him, the boat, and the open ocean. He plans to cross the Atlantic and the Pacific in the same calendar year. In January of 2025, Zach will set out from the Canary Islands and row to Barbados, and that's a stretch that he, with a smile, characterizes as the pretty easy part. Then he will transport his boat across the U.S., moving west, repair it, and then set off from La Jolla for Australia. In this wide-ranging episode, Zach and I talk about his motivation, his role models, his inspiration, his views on life, parenting, travel, and much, much more. Zach is currently looking for sponsors and partners for his journey. You can check out his website at hermosaoffshore.com. HERMOSA offshore.com. Please be sure to sign up with your email to track his progress. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope that it humbles you as much as it did for me. Welcome, Zach. Thanks for joining us on the Superintendent's Hangout.
Happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, full disclosure for listeners, I saw an article in the San Diego Union Tribune, and in a little bit, Zach's going to tell us about an adventure that he's got planned and a big attempt in the future. But before that, Zach, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what's your origin story, where you're from, what you're doing now?
Fair enough, yeah. So I'm from rural Derbyshire, which is the northern part of England. Middle Hills, not much going on. Town of 7,000 people. Grew up there, really happy childhood, and really spent my whole life pretty much outside. You know, going down to the rivers, fishing, walking, staying at friends' houses. You know, it was very much a rural setting. Then when I got a little bit older, I found myself on CBBC TV shows as a child actor, doing all of these adventure TV shows, basically doing what I was doing at home, just in Australia and the Middle East in front of a camera. So I kind of got really used to being in that kind of fast-paced adult environment and having work and delivering a product, which was just me and some random kids in the middle of nowhere making TV shows. And it was a pretty way to be. And then kind of about 15, stopped doing that and tried to go back to school, and really kind of found a lot of resistance there, you know, coming from a working background and then slotting yourself back in at school and raising your hand to go to the toilet. There was definitely some jarring there. So left school just after doing my SATs equivalent, basically, right. But did the
A-levels and O-levels?
Well, I didn't get to A-levels. I did GCSEs, which was 2 years before A-levels. So dropped out, moved to London, and, you know, was just kind of figuring out and moving from thing to thing, trying to find a rhythm, staying on my brother's sofa, and then somehow ended up in Mexico at the latter stage of my teenage life, and found a real love for the water and being on it.
So you made the segue into water.
Yes.
As you take a drink of your water.
Yes.
But we're talking about big bodies of water. So tell us, I made reference to the San Diego Union Tribune article and the world record attempt that you're planning for, I think, 2025. So give it to us. What does that entail?
So, you know, I have the desire to do strange things. You know, I'm 25. I haven't really found something that is me yet. And I was looking at different things, and I discovered this crazy thing called ocean rowing, which is rowing across big bodies of water by yourself for long periods of time. And it just connected with me. You know, I was like, this is something I want to do. This will be fun. And this is something that's achievable. And the good thing is it's it's such an elemental thing. You know, we've been rowing for literally thousands of years, but there are still achievements that haven't been done by man. So with ocean rowing, there's still a lot of records to be set. So what we can do, first of all, is as long as I row the Pacific Ocean in less than 209 days, I'll have the record for that. And if I do both of the oceans, Atlantic and Pacific, which I will be doing, I'll end up with being the first person in the world to do that. And then there's some other records like longest distance rowed unsupported without stopping, which I'll hopefully achieve if I can do it without having to take on any liquids or foods halfway through or 3/4 of the way through or whatever it may be. So we'll end up with 4 records at least doing these rows, and 12,000 miles of 2 hours on, 2 hours off, rowing at a slow pace, but we'll get there eventually.
What's the farthest you've rowed to date?
Not very long. You know, it's one of those things where it's still very new for me. Setting out doing this, I come from a ability that I've always loved sailing, always loved the water, and really finding an outlet for that. And that's where I found ocean rowing and my coach, Chris. So we're setting out in July, mid-July, and doing Barcelona to Ibiza, which will be a 4-night row, and that will be my longest to date. And then over the course of a year and a half, we'll get ready to really be ready for me to go out and do these huge stretches, which the first ones for the Atlantic Ocean is going to be about 50 days, and then the Pacific Ocean is going to be about 200 days. So yeah, still a long way to go, but it's more about mindset with things like this and keeping a cool head for long periods of time, and that's where hopefully I come in.
So are you planning on doing some land-based training as well?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I just did the LA Marathon a week and a half ago. I pretty much spend every morning about 4 hours on a rowing machine. And
one of those concept 2?
Literally.
Yeah.
And just trying to get everything ready to do the No Man Challenge in Barcelona on mid-July. And that's going to be really the first test. And then going from there is just leveling up the training. And it's nice to know that at the end of it, it's not a competition. It's records that we're going after, and we've got a really good team around me to do that. You know, my coach Chris, he's responsible for 70% of all of the successful Pacific crossings in rowing. He's a 6-time podium place in the Rowing World Cup and World Championships for traditional crew rowing, and he's also won and set records of himself on the ocean. And I found him, and he's been really great and a source of inspiration of getting me kind of prepared and where I need to be able to go out and set these routes.
So he's based here in San Diego, or?
No, so he's come out a few times to see how I've been doing. We've gone out to go and check out the boat which is in British Columbia at the moment together. And then I'm spending a few weeks with him before the No Man Challenge as a camp to basically get me into the best possible shape just beforehand we start. And that's going to be really fun.
So tell us about the boat, the vessel.
Okay.
Is it called a skiff?
So I mean, it's completely different to any kind of traditional rowing that you might have in your head. It's effectively a capsizable chamber with oars attached to it. So
no outriggers or anything on it?
No, nothing. So everything is your rudder is sorted out by your foot, and also a little computer for when you're sleeping. There's no propeller or anything like that, and it is a carbon fiber and Kevlar construction. And then you have a pod that you sleep in that is airtight in case you capsize, and then it's all open deck, and then you've just got your oars and your slider, and you're good to go.
Wow. So I guess I'm assuming in your training you're gonna try to roll it, right? You're gonna do that a lot, so you become comfortable, and I'm sure there's a muscle memory part, but then there's also a overriding fear and anxiety piece to that.
Massively. You know, the thing is this isn't to go out there and take risks. The planning behind this is to go out there and complete this challenge safely. That is key, and that is a big part of it. There's no point in going out and taking needless risks or doing things that you are vastly unprepared for, or doing things that are dangerous. That isn't part of it. The main key component of this is doing something amazing but safely, because anyone can take silly risks and who knows what the outcome might be. It's a very different way of thinking and competing when actually your main goal is to do things correctly and safely.
What's your communication going to look like between your boat and the shore? So
lots of radio, basically. Hopefully we'll have a really good satellite connection via Starlink. We've talking to other ocean rowers, there's like a 50-50 chance that the Starlink will make it all the way through, which will suck for things
because you hit pockets, right?
Yeah, which will suck for Spotify and giving some entertainment. But most of the communication will either be done
and for your family too, right?
Yes. Well, it's funny you say that, actually, seeing family, because it's like, well, like, you're going to miss seeing your family and friends. And like, I've traveled and lived for so long. I mean, I see my parents probably on average once every 2 years. Right. So I'll actually see my parents more doing this than I will normally. So when people are like, oh, you're going to miss your parents, I'm like, no, I'm actually going to see them more doing this, which is kind of cool. At the end of the day, you're going from point A to point B and you're following the currents that naturally will take you there anyway. So unless a big storm comes in, you'll end up where you need to be.
And I'm imagining if a storm comes through, you avoid it to the extent possible, but you're just going to have to ride it out, right?
Pretty much. I mean, the thing is you don't have sails, you don't have motors to avoid a storm, and you don't have enough propulsion to get away from a system. So the best thing to do there is point your boat in a certain way for how the waves are coming, put your parachute anchor down. If you capsize, remain calm and know that you'll come back up. And, hope that it doesn't last more than a couple of days.
Wow, I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it. And so I guess so you're doing solo unaccompanied, right?
Yeah.
That's the category. So that means that obviously people can't pass you food or medicine or anything out there. Are they going to be following along? Nothing. So they're literally waiting at your point of destination.
Yeah. So the thing is it's dangerous to have, as I said, the rowing boat is basically what the lifeboats you see from big ships. They are enclosed capsules with really, really buoyant pockets built into them to survive storms. A 36-foot sailboat with a 70-foot mast, if that gets caught in a storm, people die,
right.
And you don't want to be putting people in that situation. And it sounds really counterintuitive that not having a support vessel is more safe, but it is. And we carry enough supplies. My boat has all of the redundancies built into it, so I can do everything manually if my computers or anything kind of freezes out. There is the idea that this is happening no matter what. I'm doing a lot of celestial navigation at the moment.
I was going to ask you that because I was recently, a year ago, I was in Hawaii, and when you think about the great vast expanses of the Pacific, right, and the fact that people navigate, 1,000 years ago, people navigated with a sailboat, but oftentimes people rowing, right? And you're like, amazing that they could hit little islands in the middle of that vastness. So I'm assuming you're going to have to be ready at least to do some of that too.
Yeah, so that's all part of it. And that's part of the beauty of it. You touched on it there, is the idea that whether it's 1,000 years ago and you're a Viking, or even longer than that in Polynesian, or some of these great civilizations that we don't even know about, if we were to one day meet and they asked, what do you do? We could probably have a conversation and they would know someone that has done something similar, whether that's navigating from the stars or rowing these distances. And that's the really cool thing, to think that this ability and this mode of transport has been around for nearly as long as man. And that's really the beauty of it, is just to be able to do something that is so intrinsically simple, but in practice a little bit tougher, and your routine and day-to-day is certainly harder than most. But that's what you prepare for, and that's why you do a lot of celestial navigation. That's why you practice radio communication and how to channel other vessels. So if your long wave isn't working, you can basically reach out on shortwave and get messages across. But either way, I'll have a few air tags in there, and hopefully you can see me going along. But yeah, I will not be stopping with computer failures or anything like that. The idea is to finish this row and be in the best position to do that.
What are you going to do for nutrition? How do you manage? I'm going to imagine you're burning. I mean, you said your cadence is going to be slow, but even if you row every 2 hours, if you're going around the clock, that's a lot of calories.
Yeah, so I mean, you need to really put in between 5,000 and 6,000 calories a day if you want to keep energy levels up. And that's a really kind of catch-22 situation, because you don't want to pack your boat too heavy, because then you're carrying dead weight, but you don't want to pack it so light that you need to get help at some stage. A lot of the unsupported rowing of the Pacifics have not been successful. They've completed the row, but they've had to have some assistance because of that fact.
Because they run out of food,
or
water or something.
Well,
right?
We've got a water maker from the ocean
really?
to help with that. But the main thing that people have a problem with is the smell of fish. Because everyone goes out with the idea that, I'll just catch fish as I go along. Everything smells of fish. Everything smells of fish for days on end.
You mean once you catch them and get them on board, right?
So people are like, I can't be bothered with this. But good thing for me is I used to work in a chicken factory. There is no worse smell than chicken and the smell that produces. So I'm uniquely positioned I have been in confined areas with bad smelling places, and I love fish as well. So that's really the beauty of it as well. So you're going to get all your protein from there.
So you just throw a line.
Also because your vessel is not a boat or anything that is normal for a fish to go danger.
Right.
What it is a massive shade from the sun,
which they're attracted to.
Exactly.
Right?
So fishing is pretty easy for most of the Pacific. So that for me is something I'm looking forward to. My coach is skeptical because he said he hated it, and he fished once in the entirety of doing the Atlantic, and he would never do it. And I'm like, that's not going to be for me. I'm going to be eating fish all the way.
So raw.
You can. I mean, I'll have a tiny camp stove that I'll be able to cook on, but sashimi in the middle of the ocean sounds pretty cool to me.
Wow, and I imagine a lot of sports drinks or something, enough sugar content too, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's really topping up the sugars. The good thing is you can eat a lot of peanut butter. You can go through a lot of Nutella. You don't have to be super strict.
Right.
You just need the calories at that point, and it needs to be a balance of calories you're using to actually be beneficial to your effort, and then just replacement calories. So with your replacement calories, you don't have to be as strict on what you're putting into your body. But when it comes to actually getting useful energy out of the calories, you do have to really start looking at what you're putting in your body there. And that comes from dehydrated vegetables and lots of other ingredients that you can mix into different rice dishes to really give you the sustenance to carry on.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's that balance. I mean, people often think, it needs to all be really, like shopping at Whole Foods kind of stuff. But in order to get the calorie density, the amount you're burning, you're going to need to. You're probably throwing some high sugar content stuff into your body, right? Keep the furnace stoked.
Literally, I mean, my mum is going to end up making a lot of my meals. She's a brilliant cook, and we've got a freeze dryer. And so it's a lot of curries, a lot of stir fries, pretty much anything that you think of that is you need to add liquid and rehydrate and turn into a meal, because with that it's a really good vessel for packing full of calories, packing full of sugars to really give you the sustenance you need to continue, and also the flavor, because you don't want a boring flavor. You need a lot of spice to kind of perk you up, because at the end of the day, mealtime should be something you're looking forward to, because you only get that 3 or 4 times a day. and they need to be good meals. If you're going back to, ration packs or, gels, which obviously you'll have on board, but you want to be eating as good as possible and have that as a special time of the day for you.
And I have to ask this because people will ask this or wonder. So your toilet's a bucket, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Home Depot bucket. Hey,
there's a sponsorship.
Exactly. You do everything in the bucket. You wash in the bucket. Your bucket is your life basically, and you look after it. Because if you lose it, which I know a lot of rowers have lost their bucket, it's not very pleasant to have to turn your deck into a poop deck, quite literally.
You ever going to swim?
Not really.
Not really. You don't want to get separated from the boat, right?
Yeah. I mean, you'll have to do a little bit of snorkeling to clean the underside of the boat every couple of days.
Barnacles
and things like that, because that's going to affect the ability to really kind of move through the water confidently. And the other reason is really to try and get out and get some movement in your legs and having some fun there. But yeah, it's not a swimming challenge, unfortunately. So mainly on deck and rowing.
How do you handle blisters?
Just tough it up, I mean, it's one of those things that you've got a lot of preparation going into the hands, a lot of movement in them already. You need to make sure that you're cleaning them out. They will, begin the stages of infection. They will become grim. That's just a matter of fact. It's just all about prepping them and keeping them going. Luckily, again, it's not particularly high cadence, so you don't have the same level of movement that you would in, say, crew rowing.
No, crew would be, you can't imagine, you couldn't keep that cadence up. Yeah.
But, still you're rowing for 200 days straight, so you'll end up with pretty messed up hands, but, that's a cool thing in some ways.
So I'm going to, in preparation for this, I did a little bit of research, and you go online and you look up ocean rowing, and then you see these stories about risks. And I was reading an article, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that marlin are a risk, and another one said orcas were a risk, or bumping into a container that might have fallen off a ship in a storm that was just submerged enough that you couldn't see it. How do you prepare for those sorts of things? Is it more of a mental exercise, or?
Well, I mean, shipping container, if you hit a shipping container at 30 knots and you're on a sailing boat, you're done for. You're going a knot, 2 knots.
Okay.
On a good day, 3 knots.
They'll just scrape.
Yeah. So, you'll be all right. You've got more carbon on your boat. So, you just basically have to do some repairs.
Okay.
With the fact that, an orca or a marlin or something like that, you're in the ocean, It's kind of like if an orca wants to come in and think you're a seal and try and crush your boat, then fair enough, you're in their space, Same with the marlin. Doubt it will happen, it's a big place and you can make lots of noise. I've got a flare gun, there are things that you can do to mitigate those kind of risks.
So the flare gun would be to warn a ship?
Yeah. To warn a ship or to do any, you've got a lot of different devices that, if an orca's coming for you, you can try and navigate around it. But again, I find that highly unlikely.
Right.
I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Cortez, spent a lot of time near whales, and I've never seen any with malice intent. Fingers crossed to touch wood on that one. But I'm not worried about that. But as far as shipping containers go, that would really suck. One thing for like ending your expedition for some natural causes,
right? But
have to end it because
human pollution.
Exactly.
Really,
like that. That would be quite honestly the worst case scenario for me, and it would take me a while to recover from that one emotionally.
What are you going to do for kind of mechanisms or maybe hacks to stay positive, motivated, goal focused? Because I'd imagine you'll go through stretches. I mean, so you're talking about 200 days of rowing in a row. You get about 30, 40, 50 in, and you're starting to feel the journey already. And you're like, man, I'm not even getting near halfway. How do you stay motivated and focused?
For that, it's super simple. I have a very positive mindset. My mother and father really raised me with a NLP kind of background and really bringing positive attitudes into everything. And for me, the whole thing is an exercise of how do you keep positive for that amount of time. And the way you do that for me is you bring yourself into the situation and think, how amazing is what you're doing? You know, at the end of the day, you could be anywhere, but you're in the middle of the Atlantic Pacific Ocean, rowing by yourself, surrounded by nature. And yeah, if you're late, you're late, you know? I mean, but it's just about not trying to overcomplicate the situation or putting any pressure on the situation. You know, the pressure should be now, getting the money, raising the finances, and getting to the start point. That's where the pressure is. As soon as you're on the ocean, you really can't really be bringing any of that with you. You know, that is, you'll get there when you get there. Enjoy yourself. You know, it's a heck of a lot better than working at a chicken factory. So, you know, you'll be all right.
So you mentioned that your boat is in British Columbia. Is it being built?
So it's just finished being built. It's a lovely little 28-foot open carriage with 2 dry locks in it, one for sleeping, one for storage. And yeah, it's a pretty cool boat. It's completely custom from head to toe, designed to really break these records. Getting off the American coast is going to be super hard because you've got a lot of currents pushing you into shore. So that's going to be about 36 hours non-stop of rowing.
Going east.
So
you're taking off. Talk us through the first half of this world record attempt.
So first half is Canary Islands to Barbados. Okay. So it's about... We'll probably row anywhere between... I forgot how long it is. That's bad.
It's long.
Yeah, it's long. It's about 8,000 miles.
Okay.
No. Oh, no, sorry. Scratch that. This 4,000 miles.
4,000,
there we go.
Right,
there we go.
Right.
Sorry, it's 12,000 in total, and that's all I have to think about.
Okay.
I try not to break it down too much, you see. So 4,000, that's pretty much easy. Well, not easy, but it's not so much of a challenge because you've got currents taking you directly from the Canary Islands to Barbados. The way the water is moving is that way. So that's really a warm-up and a good exercise to get ready for the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean's 8,000 miles, double the length, and for most of it, you've got currents that are not pushing you in the direction that you want to be going in.
So that's where it's going to be hard to get off.
Exactly. So getting off the coast of California, leaving from La Jolla, most likely May time 2025.
Okay.
And it's going to be a 36-hour push right from the start, non-stop, just to get off the coast. Otherwise, I'll end up kind of going down and floating down the Baja and ending up, you know, in Tijuana and Cabo, which is a lovely place in the world, but not where I want to be rowing to.
Right now, yeah. That's for after.
Yes, exactly. So we'll be really focusing on getting the physical ability and to row 36 hours straight and giving yourself. And then don't worry, after that I can sleep with an anchor for, 12 hours and really start going through the normal. But the hardest bit of the whole expedition will be getting off the coast of California. How
do you deal with shipping lanes?
Stay away from them. Make sure you've got some lights on and, communication.
Can they see you on radar?
No, not
you're
really.
Pretty small.
But you'll be identified on radar. So part of what my my home team does is they basically communicate to other ships around me to say, hey, this guy's doing this, just to let you know, or even kind of countries that he's coming into your jurisdiction, just to let you know, da 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 da. And those guys are super important to make sure that I can just concentrate on rowing and that all the communication is done via them to other ships. And most of the time, that's not really a worry, because you're going so slow as well. You can see a shipping container come up on you for about 2 days before they'll overtake you. So you'll be fine.
And we talked about whales and marlin and that you're in their environment and what a bummer it would be to have a shipping container, take out your trip. Any concerns about bad actors out in the, you're not really going through any regions that are even known for modern piracy?
Not really. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great exposure for my sponsors. Interesting story. But yeah, I mean, pirates and bad actors, not really concerned about that. I mean, the only concerns is a really big storm where, you just have to realize that you've done everything. You're in the best position possible, and, you hope for the best and try and come out at the other side, and then you have to call the Coast Guard. But that's not going to happen, hopefully.
So that sea anchor really stops you from getting pushed too far in the wrong direction, and also I'd imagine might slow it down if you were to get caught in really big swells, so you're not going maybe end over end. I don't know. You don't want to think about that. But...
Well, the thing is you're not just dragging a mass that's the size of the boat at that point. You've got all of the weight that proportionally will be 7 or 8 times the weight of your vessel, a good 30 feet under your vessel.
So you're basically like a cork.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be very unlikely in those cases for anything bad to happen. It would have to take, a freak event for that to happen. And, don't really want to think about that one.
Yeah. Do you get seasick?
No, not at all. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time when I was younger crossing the Irish sea, which is a really, really rough sea, and I loved it. It's fun to be bobbing around, and you definitely get a little bit heady, I think, is the in certain seas, but yeah, most of the time, I've never been sick on board a ship for as long as I can remember.
Because I'm getting seasick just thinking about this. That's
fair enough.
Yeah, that's wow. That's and in terms of like, I'm sure you're bringing first aid kit and preparation.
Of course.
You're a young, healthy guy, but trying to think about different contingencies, right? You don't want to get injured unnecessarily and that sort of thing.
And I have a doctor that's on hand 24/7 that, I can FaceTime and show them, okay, this is what my hands are looking like, or, my collarbone's been dislocated. How do I put that back in? There's different mechanisms to go in, and making sure that realistically myself and this boat can safely finish these challenges.
So this is just a practical question, but do you register with Guinness? So, not the beer, but the company that is associated with beer, right? Do you register in advance with them, or?
So with that, it's really easy because the Ocean Rowing Society, which I'm a part of, they're the spokespeople and administrators for the Guinness Book of World Records for ocean rowing.
Got it.
And they're really good. They're great people to be working with and organising this expedition with, and so they handle all of that. Realistically, it's a lovely thing to say, the records and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, I just really want to get out there and just spend 200 days on the sea and see what happens to your mind, see what happens to, your condition after doing it. It's such a journey that no one's ever done, and that's really the real reason I want to do it. The records are just nice little piece of paper on top, and considering I don't have a university degree, it's nice to have a piece of paper to say that I can do something that's pretty difficult at the end of it.
I think there are a lot of people with university degrees who might trade it for a Guinness World Record.
Well, only philosophy degrees, I think, probably. That's a dig at my brother.
So in a minute, we're going to talk about sponsorships and the logistics and where people can find you online. But I wanted to ask you who your role models are.
Strange one. I was thinking about this kind of yesterday, kind of in preparation for this, and it really kind of boils down to two people that aren't in my immediate family. Mum and dad for me have been an amazing support system and brilliant. Not in the sense that I want to emulate them in how they've lived their life, but definitely have their mental capability and their ability as parents. I'd definitely like to emulate that. What they were able to do for myself and for my brother was amazing. And even though
he has a philosophy degree.
Exactly. And I find myself now as I get older apologizing for what it must have been like to be our parents. And I really have a huge amount of respect for them, and realizing that so much of me is down to my upbringing and them. But aside from that, kind of people that I would like to be like, it's probably if Woody Guthrie and Richard Branson had a child, that's really where I'd want to be. You know, I mean, my father, for his sins, introduced me to Woody Guthrie and his autobiography at a very biography. I don't think it was autobiographical, but his book very early on. You know, probably the first book that I ever had. And he played guitar, and he would show me all of these songs and kind of the life of a traveling folk singer during the Great Depression. Just so intrigued by it, and kind of loved that ability just to kind of go anywhere, move around, and be super light on your feet, and tell a story about how you're doing it and what you're picking up along the way. You know, it resonates really with me, kind of the places that I've been where people have invited me into their ecosystem. For example, now I work for a company called Hammett, an American handbag company. And, you know, some places invite you in, and it really is the land for you and me. You know, they've supported me from literally day one of coming to work with them, and really kind of pushed me, giving me the time off to train, and time off to go out and do things like this, and really be supportive all the way through, which is amazing. And then places where I've ended up and I've like, yeah, this is not my space, and it's not a shared environment, and it's not an ecosystem I can do well in. So, you know, it is really a case of just stumbling and bumbling through to find those places. And, you know, if you don't want to make a home just yet, that's okay. You can carry on moving through it. You know, there's a really good Bosnian author, I can't remember his name, but he said, home is wherever there is a place where you're missed. And, you know, I haven't found that place yet. So, and there's been no pressure to find that place. You know, my parents aren't, we need you home, we need you to be around. You know, they're very much supporting being, go out, find where you want to call home, and find, you know, as many places along the way until you can get there. And that's, you know, really big for me, and something that I think Woody Guthrie really kind of brought into his life. On the other side, there's Richard Branson, very eccentric, very out there. All he kind of wanted to do is go out and smash things that no one else has ever done. And I really kind of admire that spirit of, there are so many paths. There are probably more job categories and job titles now than at any point in time in the world. And that's cool, you know, great. I just want to be a bit of an explorer, a bit of an adventurer, just like he does. He has a lot of successful businesses, but that's not because of a particular product or a particular business. It's because of a mentality that comes from really wanting to put your head over the parapet and doing things that no one else has done. And that's where I'm definitely at in the headspace of doing things like that for a little while, and until I find the right place and hopefully the right girl, and settle down and maybe do things closer to home, wherever that may be.
I'd imagine you're going to go, you mentioned Spotify earlier, you're going to go through an incredible amount of music. And do you listen to audiobooks? Do you, what are you going to do to kind of occupy the headspace?
So at the moment, I'm really trying to get into classical music.
Oh, wow.
Because the thing is, and this is a marathon trick that I picked up from training for doing those things, is if you listen to more and more songs, that mentally is telling you how many songs you've been through that day. Whereas classical pieces, you can get classical pieces that are 4 hours long, 5 hours long.
Right.
So it's the idea that in your head, mentally, I can say, oh, I've done 2 songs today. And yeah, they're being orchestral pieces, but in your head, It's not, oh, I've listened to 100 songs today, or 200 songs, or 400 songs. So it's that ability in that to have that conversation of, oh, it's only 2 pieces of Mozart today, and that's a much easier way to get through it mentally than, say, having to listen to 100,000 songs in 200 days. So yeah, so that's mainly what I'll be doing, is doing that, and then also just enjoying silence, you know, having a lot of time in my head. As I said, I've moved around a lot. I've had a very fast-paced life pretty much since I was 15, or pretty much since I was 12, really. So it'll be nice to just have a really easy time to reflect on everything and figure out, what the next kind of 12, 20 years are looking like.
So sponsorships. Your boat is being built, almost finished, and
yeah.
So what are you looking for in terms of sponsorships, partnerships, and then also where can people find you?
Amazing. So, by the time this podcast is released, my website will be live, hermosaoffshore.com. And we're just looking for anyone that can donate to the project. Our Cash App and Venmo's there. But any business that wants to get involved, we'll be putting out a lot of content over the next 18 months, especially in June when we transition to doing a full-time training regime. I'm focusing solely on this, where we're creating content and having a lot of fun with this. And really businesses that want to get involved with that, not looking for huge sums of money, just over a series of 20 months, anywhere between $500 and $2,000. We'll be your vessel, no pun intended. Well, pun intended. To do some really interesting stuff and smash records, and that's what it comes down to, basically. And at the end of the day, it just comes for me for businesses that just want to do something cool. It probably isn't going to make you 100,000 followers on Instagram. It's not going to dramatically change your business, but what it is going to do is set the record straight that you're a company that is out there and is trying to set things and do things that no one else in the world has even attempted. And if that's not a good message for your business, then, I don't really know what else is.
Do you have a social media presence or?
No, so I'm all very bad at that. So that's all coming online as we speak. I didn't even mean to be in the paper. It was all by accident. A lady came into the shop that I worked in, and I was just talking to her about what I do on the side, and she was like, "Oh, well, my friend is a reporter of the local paper." Took me in for an interview, wrote some things down. Honestly, I put it to the back of my head, and then it kind of blew up, ended up in the San Diego Tribune, going on to San Diego, Good Morning San Diego tomorrow. So none of this is been planned or scripted. So I'm definitely having to learn pretty fast. And so social media will be coming up by the time that this podcast is. We've got the handle at Hermosa Offshore, the beautiful offshore, just with a Spanish twist that really goes with the headquarters of the company I work for, Hammett. They're based in Hermosa Beach. And I just thought it was a beautiful name, quite literally, and because it is the beautiful offshore, and we're going that way. So, we're getting there, drips and drabs. I didn't plan on being a sponsored athlete. Right. I was hoping that I was just going to work and get my head down, save up enough money to do this myself.
Right.
It was going to take a little bit longer, but that was the plan. Now all these sponsorships are coming in, these opportunities. So I'm just really interested to hear what you guys need. Do you want a sunburnt ginger from England screaming about your brand on things like this? And we'll get there.
Right.
And then the other thing is just finding, schools that we can do a part of this. For me, the biggest thing that I got from education was people coming in and talking to us that weren't anything to do with academia. Because it's great if you're going down that route. It's great if you want to go to university. It's great if you want to be a scientist, an educator. So many more jobs and so many more inspirations that you can be taking from that aren't anything to do with academia. And there are so many jobs that exist out there that, you probably won't know until you're an adult that exists. And we're just going to try and find that and teach as many children as possible that it's okay to want to do something different. And there is a runway for you to do that. And involving them as well is I'd love to try and mirror the row with local schools. So each day a different school takes up the mantle of doing a little bit of the Pacific Ocean.
Wow, how would that look? We're tracking you kind of on your. I know your website's still
literally.
in
So you'll be tracking me on the internet. We'll be covering a few miles every day, and it'll be great. For a mile a day. A school coming up and doing that row with me on a machine in their own school, trying to raise money. And again, I've realised kind of inadvertently that this thing is going to give a platform to this expedition, maybe myself, I don't know, but the amount of interview requests and what's been happening over the last couple of weeks, I'm slowly realising that this isn't going to slip through the radar in a good way. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely having to adapt and making sure that using this platform, we're going to do it for something really interesting, not just the row, but what we can build around that as well, involving local schools, involving local charities, and just creating something that at the end of it, we can say as a community, this is what we've accomplished. We've taken a kid from nowhere, that said that he wants to do something, and as a whole, the community is the reason why that's being done. And I'm really, really thankful for that, and want to make sure that it's something we do together. I hate the idea of saying give back, because it's not giving back. The community is responsible for getting here. So it's like we as a community need to decide what we do with this, because why not? It's the right thing to do.
I'd imagine that La Jolla, I think I remember in the article that you said that you've really kind of found at least a home temporarily in La Jolla. And I'd imagine as this builds and gets closer to your departure, you'll get more attention and energy there from that community.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy. This is all come from me just genuinely saying, "Oh, I'm going to row the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean," and having a few key people that said he's going to row the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. My coach, the Ocean Rowing Society, really kind of got behind me there, and then members of the community have just gone, if that's what he wants to do, it's cool enough. Let's help him do it. So it's been really kind of amazing, because they could have just looked at me like a crackpot. I don't know if that's a bad word in America. Can you say?
No, you can say crackpot.
Okay. A crackpot that's just come into town going, well, I've got this crazy idea, and by as quick as I came in, they could have brustled me out, but they've really embraced me and said, this kid's going to do it. Let's help him do it. And that goes from everyone from Barbara Freeman in the Be Free Gallery to Hammett, to these guys, the Lomas brand that I literally said, I'm going on some interviews. Can I have some gear? Because most of my clothing is...
Oh, that's your hat.
Literally.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. What is that? Is
surf brand.
Surf brand.
I was like, pretty much all my clothes have holes in, or have been stained by either the sun or the sea. Can I borrow some clothes for the interview? And kind of went in this morning. And she just decked me out in all their apparel, and I was like, look great. And I'm like, thank you very much. Here we go. And so, again, really, I mean, I've been to nearly 20 countries, and I've spent significant time in kind of Europe, in Central America, North America, spent some time in the Middle East, spent some time in Australia. Never really found or come across a place like this before, and really cool. Not great for the sunburn, but everything else is pretty brilliant.
I think you might need to get a sunscreen sponsor.
Exactly. Bum sunscreen if you're listening.
So I'd imagine you're going to use the sunscreen, what is it that the surfers use, the real thick?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mark Zuckerberg style, kind of, I want to be Casper the Ghost most days.
Yeah, you do. There's not much, even on cloudy days, right? No. There's nothing blocking you.
I mean, and I'm in the open ocean there is no shade for 200 days.
Wow. Yeah. I think one of the things that and I really, again, Zach, I really appreciate you coming in. I have one more question for you in a second, but one of the things that really caught my eye is that there's real value in audacious goals and hard things, attempting hard things. And I think we, especially in my line of work in education, we struggle with this idea that things shouldn't be hard for our kids. That, there's this concept of, so we deal with the concept of helicopter parents and now bulldozer parents. So helicopter parents are hovering over to make sure that nobody skins their knee, and bulldozer parents are getting out ahead of their kids and bulldozing as many obstacles out of the way as they possibly can. And neither one of those leads to a life of resiliency and a life of ultimately independence and being a self-actualized adult, which is ultimately, I'm a parent, I have a 20-year-old daughter, and that's ultimately what I want for my child, right? That she can stand on her own feet and she can handle her own problems and that she can fall down and get back up.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what's so inspiring about what you're setting out to do.
Massively, and I appreciate you saying that, because it does come down to parents, really. I've never seen a product of two parents or a single parent where they've gone, I want my child to be this, and it work out successfully.
Nope.
Very rarely. I mean, yes, Serena Williams' parents, King Richard, great. But realistically, that's not going to happen. All you're going to do is make your child miserable. And what you want to be is the parent of a happy child. Because realistically, if your child's happy, nothing else should matter. It's not your place to be putting educational pressures on your child. That is the school's job. And, you need to make sure that you leave your teachers to do what they do best. And that is putting educational pressure on your children. Your pressure needs to be concentrated on how can I bring about happiness? How can I bring about turning them into a good person, moralistically speaking? It's really the idea that staying in your lane. And I think it's really hard to do that now. And parents feel like it's important for them because if it doesn't come from them, it's not going to come from anywhere. And it's like, teachers are some of the most selfless human beings in the world. They are not there for the paycheck. They are there because they want to do this. I just find it amazing that some parents could think that there is malintention on behalf of a school or on behalf of a teacher trying to do that. They make mistakes. They're not perfect. But you as a parent make mistakes and you're not perfect. And it's this idea that if we can just mold them into this perfect creation, everything will be perfect. It's not going to happen, And there's not enough of that mentality around that. You really just need to look at your kid and go, they'll probably be all right, because they will probably be all right, And the more you try and make them all right, the less likely they are going to be so. And it's just about letting kids be kids for as long as possible. All I wanted to do was be an adult. I left school when I was 15, properly left education when I was 17, and my God, is it hard being an adult? It's like, why on earth would you want to force or prepare a child for that when they have, 18 years of not having to do that just yet? It doesn't matter how prepared you are. Nothing's going to prepare you for having to pay the amount of tax you're about to pay. Nothing's going to prepare you for bills coming out and you having $0 at the end of the month. Nothing. There isn't a school for that, and it's still going to suck even if you know that you're going to have to pay bills as an adult. So I'd just say forget about that. Let them enjoy being kids for as long as possible and making sure that they're a decent adult rather than a decent kid. Let them make mistakes and let them be silly and wish them the best, because at the end of the day, you'll look back and your childhood will be the reason why you are an adult. And you want to make sure that you have a really good runway for that and not just be forced into something too soon.
Well, we're definitely going to have to take you up on the offer to come back out at some point and talk to our students. I think they'd really enjoy that as we get closer to the venture and get your website up and more footage of your training. I think they would really be intrigued by that. And I think there's a possibility also of doing some of the training of, having a day where our kids are rowing and our staff is rowing to match your rowing. So
would love that.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm going to wrap on this this thought exercise. So I'm going to give you a billboard on the side of the 5 freeway. I know you probably drove down here from La Jolla on the 5 freeway. So you get a billboard and you get to design a message on that billboard. And that message, you think about cars going by at 65 miles an hour, they have like 3 seconds to look at it. So it's got to be short enough. What does that message say about your vision of this great venture that you're going to be undertaking?
Well, I would say that, you need ambition and hard work in equal measures. And that's it. You can, if you have a lot of hard work and no ambition, you're not going to get anywhere. If you have all ambition and no hard work, you're not going to get anywhere. So I would just try and have those things in parity, and good luck. Everyone's got their own challenge. Everyone's got their own Pacific and Atlantic challenge. I'd just say good luck. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really got there yet.
That's great. There's a reason I didn't send you that question previous to the interview, because I want it to be spontaneous, and that's perfect. Hard work, ambition, good luck.
Yeah.
Just right there. And we'll definitely be following your adventures going forward.
Amazing. Thank you, David.
And we'll be back in touch, and we'll put all the information for contacting you in the show notes.
Thank you.
So just, again, wish you all the best and have a lot of respect for how audacious this goal is and how courageous, and also how you are breaking it down into digestible steps so that it doesn't become overwhelming to you. So again, very inspirational. Thank you for coming and hanging out.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Superintendent's Hangout. You can follow me on Twitter at DVS1970. Please be sure to share this show with friends and family on social media and in the real world. Thank you to Brad Bacayal for editing and production assistance, and to Tina Royster for scheduling and logistics. Thanks for hanging out, and have a great day.